Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I present to you the prologue of my debut novel of Shells and Skids. It starts off in Patchogue, February 27th, 1993. Fishing lures hung from the tracks of the second garage door that was never opened. Big and colorful 9-inch surf fishing plugs for trophy bass. The type of bass that are wont to inhale wounded herring and shad from waves lit by a hunter's moon shining down through the water column. There were also lead-weighted bucktail jigs of all colors scattered around and hanging from anywhere a hook could gain purchase. Clam rakes, oyster and scallop dredges, lengths of rope, boat bumpers, 14-foot clam digging tongs, life jackets, foul weather gear, rubber boots and gloves with a thumb and forefinger cut off for casting. A harpoon, big nets, gaffs, and near 50 fishing rods were piled against the back wall and hanging parallel to the floor from the ceiling. But I kept my 16-year-old eyes on the man before me, because he knew about making money in the water, and he had clearly excelled at amassing so much fishing stuff. His house was in a busy corner in Patchogue, about an hour away from my house. Not that anyone gave a fuck.
Yo, listen to me when I'm telling you this, kid. The first thing you do is ignore everything that mushmouth foreman crackhead Willie tells you. And don't waste your time fishing with him.
Shane ashed his cigarette on the floor before running his suntanned hands over the crab dredge, checking the chain links in the bag. He had the reactions of a wild animal and moved differently to other men, as his feral gray eyes cast around beneath his short-cropped brown hair.
I once saw Willie walk up, stone cold serious sober, to the relay boss where we were digging clams off Staten Island, and ask if the boss could build a heliport at the clam treatment plant so he could fly his fucking helicopter in. You got me?
Yeah, man, it sounded strange to me the government would use him to do work in other countries he couldn't talk about.
Huh. Willie's still talking that shit? Let me tell you something. I didn't see his ass at Paris Island. He ain't no jarhead. He ain't no Navy SEAL. And he ain't no Army fucking Ranger. He's a fucking poster child for abortion. That's what he is. And he don't make no money. No fucking money at all. That's why his wife lives in the trailer upstate and gets fucked by anything with a pulse.
I let a momentary look of surprise cross my face, and it made Shane laugh.
That fucking crack monkey CJ. You know that funny one-bag digging useless fuck? Looks like a gnarled little brown-haired leprechaun. Like he found a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow and was filled with crack. You ever see that guy?
Yeah, and he wouldn't shut up about how good life was when he was my age. He used to drive kilos in his bicycle for that dude who was bringing all the coke from the water before he died.
Huh. Well, that isn't so far from the truth there, bub. With that infection-rotted face, you know where he got that? Listen to me when I'm telling you this. He reached out and bit himself right in the cheek. Gave himself rabies.
Shane flicked his cigarette and leaned the dredge back against the wall, then stood to his full 6 feet, the same height as me.
And then with that infected mush and that birth defect where he's missing his one chest muscle, with all that shit, he still managed to top Willie's wife. You understand that, kid?
He asked me as I stood there with my mouth open in flabbergasted contemplation of the horrific task of a man screwing Willie's wife. She was mean, large, and in charge, and it was beyond the conceptualization of all my 16 years. But Shane just went on with a humored look.
She's the type big girl, don't give you no shade in the summertime, don't keep you warm in the winter. Never forget that, kid. Now let's go pull that net and dredge these fucking crabs. We gotta get this money before the day's out, bub.
Shane pulled a joint from the cigarette box in the pocket of his flannel shirt and lit it as he opened the garage door and nodded to me to grab the dredge. Shane's truck was an old diesel board piece with custom spots in the bed where the metal had rusted through and he had responded with fiberglass patchwork. But the homespun repairs in no way diminished her. She was loud, she grumbled and rumbled, but she was dependable and had never failed to trailer the boat to the ramp or deliver the catch to the buyer since we'd been fishing together. I heaved the dredge over the gunwale of the skiff and walked past the trailer hitch holding her to the truck. Shane climbed in and she roared to life, coughing up diesel fumes into the February air. He passed me the joint and jerked his head forward to check if the road was clear before gunning it from his driveway through the red light in the corner. The truck's engine was revving and the skiff in the old trailer bounced along behind with a stack of buckets rolling around the deck. And that's how my stomach felt. I was hungover as I'd so seldom been at 16. Those were the good years when I could drink a case of beer and still get up the next day, laughing at my shirt that said the liver is evil and must be punished. That was what the night before had been all about. It had been a party as never before.
one where I discovered coke that helped me drink like a fish. But what comes up must go down. I hadn't slept, my blood still sang with cheap gallons of red wine, and as the alcohol washed away, the hangover was coming on strong. But I would not show weakness. Weakness could not exist around Shane, or he'd tear it to pieces like a shark scenting blood. There was no more conversation, only the sound of the boat violently shaking and jumping about on the trailer. 3 buckets rolled around the deck, constantly on the verge of flying out but getting jammed under one gunnel and then the other, with frequent pit stops with the console in between. It looked like Shane was a step away from pulling over as his eyes swiveled between the rear and side view mirrors. But he wouldn't pull over. He didn't do that shit. When he went, he went. Damn the buckets. He wouldn't stop for that shit. That man did one thing. He worked. He made money every single day. It was like he rose at dawn 7 days a week with a desire to find profit and beat it until it was a quivering, bloody mess there for his taking.
We need those damn buckets,
he said, breaking my thoughts and sending my stone brain into a questioning whirlwind of doubt as to his ability to read minds. How did he know I was thinking about the buckets, man?
The coke's departure had me jittery. Very jittery.
Oh, excuse me. If you want to stop, I'll run out and tie him down. Whenever work needed to be done in a boat, it was to be done without contemplation. And if we needed those buckets, we needed those buckets. I didn't know then just how much we'd need those buckets.
Yeah, better do that. This old girl's got no bilge pump and he sits like a pile of shit in the water. But don't tell her I said so.
Shane pulled to the side of the road and left the ass of the boat hanging out a foot into the lane.
Damn the DEC.
Shane cursed as I got out, safe between the shoulder and the truck as cars whooshed past on Montauk Highway. One honked and another screamed, "Fuck you!" But Shane didn't care. Caring did not seem to be the thing to do, except when the DEC impounded his boat for poaching with an illegal fight net. The 22-foot boat the DEC seized had been beautiful, whereas this new boat with the green hull, she looked like a whoopty, a term Shane taught me for a cheap car to sell drugs from that could be sacrificed if caught. Such a boat might be good for poaching, but there is still something to be said for seamanship in a nice boat. I reached over her gunwale where the buckets were wedged and grabbed them. They were stuck together so damn tight I doubted even though I'd hit it with a hammer trick would separate them. So I tied them off, lashed them to the cleat, and then jammed them back under the gunwale with nothing but hope they wouldn't jump out of the boat to bang in the side like bumpers.
Asshole!
A guy screamed from a Cadillac that had slowed down a pass.
Hey, fuck your mother good or I'll make her my whore!
Shane screamed as loud as he could and gave the finger as I got back in the car.
Fucking people. Can't they see we're going fishing?
Yeah, man, they got no decency. I said because that's what I thought Shane would want to hear.
Fucking right. No decency at all. Descended from fucking pond scum, the lot of them, bub. Pond scum. Never you forget that.
Shane pulled onto the road with the tires spinning and the old single-axle trailer lurching into motion. Montauk Highway, Route 27, is called a highway, but must have received that moniker in the days of the Model T or something. It's just a straight line down the south shore of the island through Main Street of every town and past scores of 7-Eleven convenience stores. The clearest mark of civilization. We had taken Shane's truck to other states like Pennsylvania before to get big bags of weed and black gym bags that were locked and full of something. And we'd established one truth in those trips. Aside from shooting guns in the woods and blowing up stolen Christmas yard displays,
Pennsylvania ain't shit.
Yes, let's just hold that thought and get back to where we are right here. Excuse me. Pennsylvania ain't shit. There were no 7-Elevens and you couldn't buy beer at gas stations or anywhere civilized folk would expect to find such necessities. Such were my thoughts as my head began to throb as the hangover progressed. By the time we got to the Robert Moses Causeway, it was no longer a distraction. The hangover was consuming me from within my head like some horrid self-combustion. We drove the long causeway over the back bay near where we'd be working after we launched from the ramp at Captree.
Here, drink this and keep your shit together.
Shane pulled a tall boy 24-ounce beer from the folds of the foul weather gear in the seat between us and passed it to me. Thanks, I said in genuine relief, knowing that would push the hangover back by another 24 liquid ounces. The hair of the dog was clearly the answer. Shane cracked one for himself right after I opened mine and we drank in silence. I'd seen him start some mornings, grayish green, gleaming with sweat, but Shane always worked his way through it and so would I. The sun was just up over the horizon and the sky was a cold winter light blue. The dark water also spoke to winter. Or maybe it was just my imagination as Shane lit another joint in silence and passed it after the appropriate 2 hits. 2 hits were right and proper in a joint. 2, never more. We drove over the drawbridge and took the exit to Captree Boat Basin before the road swept us over the Robert Moses Bridge and connected Captree Island to the outer beaches. The toll booths were empty at the park entrance. It was just us and the seagulls that never paid anyway. Shane turned the wheel over as the trailer creaked and made an unholy grating sound behind us while we followed the sign of the boat ramp. I looked at all the party boats floating there in the dock and imagined how nice it would be to have a boat with a cabin. The winter salt air had a special way of penetrating every layer of clothing when cruising speed was reached. But a cabin could even have a heater. Such luxurious thoughts were doubtless a sign of weakness, and assuredly to be kept private. Yet still, the cabins looked so comfortable, and I was crashing hard into exhaustion. Shane backed the boat up to the flat above the ramp, and we got out in a cloud of smoke that billowed across the parking lot to knock out the seagulls that sat stoically watching and waiting to see some winter grub materialize. Shane didn't have one of those fancy straps to secure the boat to the trailer. Hey, quiet over there! Shane didn't have one of those fancy straps to secure the... Quiet! Shane didn't have one of those fancy straps to secure... I'm reading over here! Shane didn't have one of... I'm reading! It took me years to learn to read! Hey! Shane didn't have one of those fancy straps to secure the boat to the trailer, so it took a minute to untie the line that was lashed from dual timber hitches in the trailer's frame, then passed over the boat for some sort of tightening hitch that Shane had picked up from somewhere, probably the Marines. But whatever its name or origins, it worked as well as any store-bought strap. Shane went back to the truck while I checked the bilge plug was in, but was instead met with horror. The deck was just the hull with deck boards atop it. That meant she had no scuppers to let out all the water we'd pull aboard dredging crabs. I moved my toes in my boots as I stood to the side of the ramp while Shane backed the trailer up, just touching the water. And I kept moving my toes needlessly as I unhooked the safety chain and bow strap from the boat. I had wool socks, but my feet were in Timberland boots, because I had forgotten my real fishing boots. Because I got high. But somehow I cracked a smile at the thought, even as I realized that frostbite might be real after all. This day is going to suck. The thought lit my mind stronger than the coke had as I climbed on a deck, onto the dock, holding the line attached to the boat's midship cleat. Shane took his foot off the brakes to roll for a yard or so and then hit them, sending the boat gliding off, gently meeting the dock. I saw the car pull into the parking lot as Shane parked the truck. Oh, fuck, I said so that only the big seagull strutting down the end of the dock could hear. The car looked so new and shiny, and I just had a bad feeling as it cruised around the parking lot, taking in the sights and a leisurely path to the ramp. Shane was 100 feet away from the dock when they got out of the car. There were two of them wearing DEC uniforms. The second guy was at least 6'6" and looked like he was on steroids, but the smaller one spoke. Well, Shane, she sure won't fetch as much as auction as your last boat, but I'll take her off your hands if you want me to. You know, I might just make your old boat part of the fleet. And I'm gonna fucking pray tonight to the fucking devil, the real one that I worship and you fucking don't. I'm gonna fucking pray your mother gets the cancer suite, swim up her drippy-slitted barnacle sanctuary of cookie woggle, and that you get the AIDS right up your ass. God is dead if a faggot can seize a man's boat. That's why I worship the devil. The smaller DEC officer who had spoken stood in shock as if he had just been punched for the first time. He seemed to not know what to do except for a few deep breaths where he opened and closed his mouth like he had a retort. But that pause gave me all the time I needed to realize just how fucked we were, because the references Shane had made meant there could be none other than the chief of the Long Island Trout Troopers. And while I might have been Shane's apprentice, I could still see that the impact on our lives would probably not be positive. Now, that's the prologue. The book is historical fiction. It goes between 1917, before Prohibition, the time of World War I, to 1993. The plots mirror each other and then come together at the end. And this is the first book in my series on Prohibition. I have 3 of the novels written. This will be published within due time, very soon. Please like this. Please share this. If you could hear the animals in the farm, I'm a poor farmer. I started this farm with no equipment, just fucking gorilla body. I fucking need this. This book here, real hard-learned, hard-won lessons from someone who fucked their life up, from someone who had drug problems and alcohol problems in high school, someone who was selling a lot of drugs in high school, weed rather, not drugs. But anyway, so I fucked my life up, learned a lot of lessons,
worked commercial fishing, farming, construction with a bunch of savages. And this right here is real shit. And at the end of the day, I ask you, do you want to read a book from somebody who spent all this money and all these fucking degrees and shit? Or do you want to read a book from a motherfucking savage who read every goddamn book on prohibition, put that shit together in the perspective of real motherfuckers doing real shit? If that's the book you want to read, this is what you need. If you have any comments on the amount of profanity, please let me know in the comments section. My editor has helped me cut down on some, believe it or not. The lessons in this book, very real, very hard won. And when you get to the end of the book, you could see it's not just all about cursing and insulting people. It's very real lessons. And the biggest thing is you really have to look around you at what you're doing in life, the people around you. The character Jack, the 16-year-old, he has basically a existential crisis of sorts in this book when he realizes all the people around him, they're fucking terrible. They're criminals, they're scum. None of them have his best interest at heart. He's a moral character. He's good at heart. But the people around him are fucking evil. And that's my life. Like this, share this, comment. If you got hate, ask yourself, what is it within you that's generating that hate? What is it within you that causes that compulsion to go share hateful shit online? But if you have constructive criticism, share it. Please like this, subscribe, and yeah, I'm gonna have a lot of books coming out here, and ain't nothing gonna fucking stop